Great. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at our OA Alliance UN World Ocean Day event for 2021, Advancing Climate and Ocean Action Through Art, Education, and Outreach. My name is Jessie Turner, and I'm the Program Manager for the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification. And just to give folks a little bit of context, the OA Alliance was created in 2016 by 4 subnational governments along the Pacific coast of North America in direct response to some of the first ever observed impacts of ocean acidification on oyster hatchery production across the North American West Coast. And together we have grown to over 100 members, including national, state, tribal, indigenous, municipal governments, as well as several non-government partners. And we work collectively to elevate urgency and ambition for climate action, to integrate ocean into climate commitments, and to translate knowledge into policy action. And we're really thrilled to be here today with many partners and members of the Alliance as we talk about the role of art and education and community engagement as a way to achieve all of the goals that we just described. So it is my privilege to introduce, to kick us off, I've got a short video from our in-house poet for today, Samantha Jones, a poem called Ocean Acidification, which blends science and poetics to explore one of the challenges a high CO2 world poses to the ocean and the species, ecosystems, and human communities that depend on it. And so we'll hear from Samantha later in our panel, but Samantha Jones' PhD research on carbon cycling in the Canadian Arctic inspired this work, which first appeared in Watch Your Head, an online publication in March 2021. And Samantha is currently a PhD candidate in geography at the University of Calgary in Alberta, Canada. So to kick us off, we'll go ahead and do a viewing of ocean acidification, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves before we go into Q&A.
The other carbon problem is more insidious, almost invisible to the naked eye, is microscopic at its onset, poking tiny holes in the base of the food chain, is propagating, is dismantling, is threatening to undermine systems in their entirety, is manifesting around river mouths here and there, in ocean waters at this time and that time, a seasonal state moving toward a permanence. Exacerbated by cold water, exacerbated by changes to the hydrologic cycle, exacerbated by stratification, exacerbated by indifference. Vinegar dissolving carbonate scale off of shower tiles, of faucets, of the inside of grease. A little bit of acid goes a long way. A little bit of acid goes a long way. A little goes a long way. A little bit goes away. The other carbon problem is chewing away at the edges, creating an irregular halo, inhibiting, is pulling away molecule by molecule, is leaving a thinned legacy of vulnerability, or sometimes a resilience, passed down to the next, if there is a next generation, because at some point all of the energy gets used up just trying to build this tiny body, a capsule for this tiny body, made slight by its own home. Some of us can adapt. Some of us have the ability to modify the chemistry of the water adjacent to our beings. Some of us will become a whisper. Some of us can only whisper about the tiny gaps we will leave that will grow and grow and grow until something collapses. We tried our best to warn you. The other problem is irregular, inhibiting, leaving a legacy of vulnerability if there is a next generation. At some point, energy gets used up, trying to build this tiny body, a capsule for this tiny body, made slight by its own. Some of us adapt, some of us modify the water. Our beings become a whisper. Some of us can only whisper. We will leave, and until something collapses, we tried our best. Irregular, inhibiting, a legacy of vulnerability. If there is a next, this tiny body, a capsule, made slight, become a whisper, can only whisper, we will leave. This tiny body, made slight, a whisper.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Samantha, for that poem, which is so beautiful. And I look forward to communicating with you as we go through this panel about your rationale for putting the poem together and what the reaction to that poem has been so far since we've released it in print, and then just this week at World Oceans Week in the video format. So before we get into our panels, I'll go ahead and ask, I'll introduce our speakers one by one and ask them to turn on their video and just introduce a little bit about their work and what that brings to today's discussion before we move into the panel. So our first speaker will be Dr. Jim Wharton, the Director of Conservation Engagement and Learning at the Seattle Aquarium in my home state of Washington. So Jim, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today, and turning it over to you for a couple of minutes to introduce yourself and the work at the aquarium.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I would love to share some slides if that's okay.
Absolutely. Pulling them up.
Oh, okay, you'd like to?
Oh, you go ahead. You take it away. Great.
Let's do it. All right. Well, thank you. That's a tough act to follow. That was a pretty moving piece. And it's a perfect way to start this panel. So thank you, Samantha, for that. As noted, I'm Jim Wharton. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Director of Conservation Engagement and Learning at the Seattle Aquarium. The aquarium is situated on two piers along Seattle's historic waterfront. We stand literally knee deep in Puget Sound. We, in a given year, in a normal year, we would see 850,000 people and another 100,000 in local field and outreach programming. And while people come to aquariums for all sorts of reasons, we exist as a conservation organization. Our mission is inspiring conservation of our marine environment. Now, the aquarium works to address three priority areas: climate resilience, sustainable seas, and clean waters. The aquarium takes action through our sustainability programs, through our policy work, our conservation research, and through our newly established species restoration programs. Now, the aquarium inspires action by helping people feel more connected to the ocean, to care more deeply for the ocean, and with the agency and the motivation to take action on behalf of ocean health. Now, to do this, we've adopted this paired geography approach. We focus on both the Salish Sea and the Coral Triangle. And by bringing the Coral Triangle, this tropical ecosystem from the other side of the planet, to Seattle, we try to show people that every body of water on the planet is connected. There aren't 5 oceans or 7 seas. There's one world ocean. And when people start to see that the challenges facing the Coral Triangle are suspiciously similar to the challenges facing the Salish Sea, people can start to appreciate that interconnectedness. We also do a lot of work with empathy and understanding how empathy might generate conservation outcomes. And when we think about empathy, what we're really thinking about are the connections between all living things, no matter how alien or strange. But we also like to talk about diversity of species, of habitats, of communities and ideas. When we think about diversity, we start to see where we fit into the big picture. So if empathy connects us, then diversity completes us and allows us to appreciate our part of the whole. We always try to meet people where they are. We understand that there are many motivations and reasons for saving the ocean, that our reasons don't have to be your reasons, but we all benefit from a healthy ocean. And so it behooves us all to find our agreements and shared values and pursue those together. And finally, of course, we want people to do something about what they know or how they feel about ocean conservation. We want them to be able to answer that question, what do I do? But we also want them to think about how that rolls up to a broader, more systemic level and answer that bigger question of what do we do? And we call that living an ocean ethic. And we're really interested in exploring what it means to foster an ocean ethic in a diverse and urban community like Seattle. But we're also learning from our other communities, our partner communities, like our Coast Salish partners, including and especially Indigenous communities like our Coast Salish friends. These are communities that have lived these lifestyles for generations. In New Zealand, they call this idea ki takitanga, and it's really about developing a relationship with the ocean that inspires a sense of responsibility to care for the ocean and for each other. And so I'm looking forward to learning more from my fellow panelists and from all of you. Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks so much, Jim. Really lovely presentation and introduction to the Seattle Aquarium, and setting a nice tone today for the ocean ethic. I'm sure all of our panelists have a lot to say and contribute to that theme. So we'll go ahead now and invite our second introduction. I'm happy to call forward Dr. Duncan McIntosh with the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, talking specifically about their ocean acidification work to date. So Duncan, take it away.
Thanks, Jesse. So I'm Duncan McIntosh. I'm the Oceanography Officer at the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program. We're based in Apia, Samoa, and I manage a project called the Pacific Partnership on Ocean Acidification, which was started back in 2014 at the UN SIDS conference that was held here in Samoa. And the aim of this project is to build resilience across the Pacific Islands to ocean acidification. So this project has 4 main focus areas. One is research and monitoring. Second is education and outreach, which will be the focus of our talk today. The third is policy support, and the fourth is practical adaptation actions. So I just want to respond to that poem that we all heard. To me, that was very moving and almost bordering on sad. It was so moving. And from the perspective of the Pacific Islands, for which our coral reefs and our coastal oceans are really life-giving, we are not prepared to sit back and accept that mitigation has to happen through political action at a global scale, but we want to take adaptation actions today. So that's been a big focus of this project. But another focus has been education and outreach. And so we have done work with local communities involving schools at the village scale, where we have translated the very esoteric concept of ocean acidification, which when it comes to ocean issues is one of the more difficult ones for us to translate into lay speak, because it's not tangible and you can't see it, unlike, let's say, ocean plastic. So we've had to engage with our Pacific Island leaders in each of the islands that we work in order to come up with new language in some instances to explain terms that don't have words in Kiribati or Fijian or Samoan or Tokelauan, for example. So we've had some success with translating a poster that just for a layperson can explain ocean acidification to a non-scientific audience targeted at community, village level, and school children, and then translated it into our local Pacific Islands so that our teachers out in the villages can use this to start to introduce the concept. This has been met with a lot of enthusiasm from our communities where we've worked, 3 where we have adaptation actions going are Fiji, Tokelau, and Kiribati. And just finally touching on the policy support, because this is also really part of our effort to educate and to reach out beyond just community members and school children, but also to try to educate policymakers who in most instances are not scientists themselves. So we have also had success with a handbook that we published to educate those policymakers on what we can do at national and regional levels to engage and build resilience to ocean acidification. Thanks very much. Looking forward to my other panelists' presentations.
Great, thanks so much, Duncan. Appreciate that. Great overview of the super important work that you're leading at SPREP. Great. Well, now I'll call to the stage, if you will, two partners, William Pardis and Kalina Grabb with the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, to share with us a little bit more about a project that they are working on relevant to an instrument that can help us measure ocean acidification, but particularly around the role of that tool in community engagement. So William and Kalina, go ahead and turn on your cameras, and I know I've got slides for you, so I'll get those up. All right, take it away.
Hi, I'm William. I'm currently working as an electrical engineer at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Feel pretty humbled, a little intimidated to be here. Just to see all the great work that's going on. I hope we can do the same. I've got here an image of me taking some of the first measurements with an instrument I'd like to introduce you to today. We call it the Fighter. This is on an atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I thought it'd be a nice reference point for a World Ocean Day. I have one of these instruments here. It's just a little black box. In simplicity, it makes the ability to take pH measurements accessible to anyone. Kind of as Duncan alluded to, the main, I think, power of this instrument we found is it's helping people see ocean acidification with their own eyes. So it does this in two ways. First, it's low cost, on the order of a few $100s, and two, it's easy to use. And we have seen in just about anyone's hands, the Fighter can make reliable measurements. The basic and powerful idea that's developing out of this instrument is we believe in people's potential to do science. We have found that this instrument not only can produce good data in the hands of anyone, but can have a real effect on people and their relationship with the ocean. Now I'll pass it off to Kalina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kalina. I use she, her, and seconding William, it's very inspiring to hear the programs of the other panelists, and so I look forward to the discussion today. I am currently a PhD student at the MIT Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, a joint program in chemical oceanography. And my work with the Fighter is mainly on implementing the outreach and education components. So I have witnessed that the Fighter can inspire students, such as these in this photo here, and excite them about chemical oceanography. The graph on the right is an example of some data that the students collected during an independent project. And many of the students that I've worked with that have used Fighters have not made pH measurements before. And yet the Fighter enables these students to design their own research projects, to really take ownership in their data. And they begin to ask questions. And so I find that it is this curiosity and this excitement about ocean science that will likely stay with them for long after their experience. So moving forward, we envision a world of Fighters. We would love to see the Fighters in the hands of thousands of people around the globe, including some of these communities that have already been mentioned today. So we hope that the Fighter can work to engage people in science, make widespread pH measurements, as well as help individuals monitor their local ecosystems. So in the same way that we need help from the communities to make pH measurements, the fighter also needs a community to support its implementation and distribution. So currently we're in the process of establishing a nonprofit Whole Marine Foundation, which can help implement fighter programs into communities, institutions, and organizations. So hopefully this foundation will host the curriculums as well as pH measurements made by the fighters around the world. And so we're currently investigating the best way to manufacture and produce fighters at a large scale. And as scientists and engineers trying to start a nonprofit, we welcome advice, support, collaborations, but we do know that we are very dedicated to making the fighter available to a global audience and increasing the accessibility of pH measurements to individuals around the world. So we look forward to hearing from the others today, and thank you for including us here.
Thank you, Kalina and William. And of course, you absolutely should be here, and it's a pleasure to have you, and really look forward to hearing more about your experience with the fighter and the trainings you've already done. Great. And so next, it's my distinct honor to introduce a friend and a colleague, Queen Quet, who is the Chieftess of the Gullah Geechee Nation, who is a member of the Alliance, but also a very active member in UN Sustainable Development Goal 14.3 Communities of Ocean Action. And turning over to you, Queen, for your overview and introductions.
Peace and blessings. So glad for dear with Hona chilling one more again. Glad for see Hona upon the water one more again, Jesse, and thing like that. And the day for we celebration of this year Ocean Week. I so glad for dear right from where Hona to see me, right in the ocean, right up on the sea islands of the Gullah Geechee Nation. The Gullah Geechee Nation going from Jacksonville, North Kakalaki, all the way down to Jacksonville, Florida. And so of course, being from the islands, we know plenty, but what is going on with the water? But when we the crack we teach show and things like that, the other rest of scientists, the other rest of people said, they don't understand we talk. So we had to change our native tongue and start speaking this language. And as soon as we started speaking this language, here come the scientists speaking their techno speak, as I like to call it. And I'm a computer scientist, so I know we can get a little eggheady, as I call it at times, when we start to speak to other scientists. But we have spent time here in the Gullah Geechee Nation working on new things where we can translate that scientific language to the language of the people that reside here in the Gullah Geechee Nation, from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida, and 30 to 35 miles inland to the St. Johns River, where literally we live in this body that we all want to heal and that we all want to protect into the future, called the ocean. And so I always say to people, the land that we family and the waterway that we bloodline. So of course, who would want to poison their own bloodline? None of us would, logically. So it's important to me to be a part of this international community that is fighting for the UN Sustainable Development Goals to actually become reality, not just documents, not just imagery, but actually reality, so that everyone here can live in balance with the ocean, with the water, with the land, and realize that everything they're made of, we are made of too. And so if we want to leave a better world to the next generation, healing waters is what we do. And so I'm so happy to come over to this event from the Capitol Hills Ocean Week and to now get into more dialogue with all of you around the world about what next we can do to bring in some positivity, some healing and protection from the ocean to this shoreline, wherever we may be. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Queen Quet. It is a joy to be able to spend time with you today. Honestly, we got to know each other more a little bit last year, and it's just great to have you. So thank you. I know that you are a busy person, and particularly during weeks like this. So
yes. They're keeping me in the boat this week. I wanted to be out in the ocean enjoying it. They're keeping me in the boat inside, but it's fun.
I know. Well, I will try to we will make good use of your time, and we're really grateful that you are part of this international community through the Alliance. It really means a lot. So we'll get into a couple more details and our discussion about some of the specifics that you have been leading on relevant to ocean acidification curriculum. But before we get into our panel discussion, it is my final introduction to our one of our panelists. Very pleased to introduce Mr. Sam Collins with Oceano Azul in Portugal. And Sam, go ahead and introduce Oceano Azul and give us a little bit more detail about who you are and what the foundation works to do.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me here today, and hello to all my fellow panelists. It's been great to hear the work being done. As Jessie said, I'm Sam Collins. I work for Oceano Azul Foundation as a project manager. So I'll give a quick overview of the kind of the foundation's work and how it ties into the topics we're speaking on today. So the Oceano Azul Foundation, we're committed to a healthy and more productive ocean under the motto from the ocean's point of view. And so we approach this essentially through three main action areas under three main time horizons. So our short-term horizon, we utilize advocacy, campaigning, partnerships. This is what we call our Blue Network. So we try to influence positive policy outcomes at the decision-making level. And our midterm time horizon would be our Blue Natural Capital. So this is where we aim to save what's left. We preserve pristine areas using MPAs and how they can be useful tools if used correctly, as well as supporting and accelerating the next wave of sustainable startups and how the blue bioeconomy can dissociate natural resources from raw materials, because that'll be an important part of a sustainable future. But our longest time horizon, which is what brings me to speak mainly here today, is our blue generation action area. So this is where we have a program that enables the next generation of youth to have the knowledge and awareness to support ocean health in their everyday lives. So we're a Portuguese-based foundation, and what we've done is we've taken the national Portuguese curriculum for ages 5 to 9, and we've injected ocean literacy to it. So the children, the students, they learn the same topics and important things, but they learn it through a blue lens. So they learn geography, but they learn oceanography. They learn history, but they learn maritime history and the law of the sea. And we've done this through language, through science, technology. And just so, this has been a pilot program initially, and we've developed the curriculum. It's been verified by the National Department for Education. And then we've empowered the teachers to teach this curriculum. So we have a teacher training course as well. And so we've empowered 900 teachers to teach around 15,000 students in this pilot study. And added to this, we have, at the foundation, we have concession to Lisbon Aquarium, which was spoken on earlier. The tool of an aquarium is an incredible, powerful tool to convey ocean literacy. And it leaves that emotional connection, which is an important part of making a lasting difference. And so these three areas I've touched on, it's all for the foundation trying to push a transformative ocean agenda, which everyone here today and everyone listening today has been lagging sufficiently behind the climate conversation. We're trying to make sure that that catches up, because, you know, after all, it frustrates me. It's 70% of the planet. It provides every second breath. And if we can communicate this to the children of today, alongside immediate action to preserve nature, then I think the youth of tomorrow may have a chance to save us yet. And I'll finish with just the last thought, that I think we here today in discussing ocean literacy, we do have a challenge in communicating and spreading ocean literacy, because humans were inherently terrestrial animals. And so we often think the problems of the ocean, or historically we've thought the problems of the oceans are for the fish and the whales. And we don't have that same connection, understanding, and examples. Like a burning forest, we inherently see as destruction of habitable land. But as has been said today, you know, ocean acidification, we can't show that. And so getting ocean literacy to the younger generations early on, I think appreciating nature and understanding how we influence the ocean, we'll have ourselves a generation of ocean advocates speaking in unison for a healthy ocean in the future. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Sam, and well done, everyone, with those introductions. I feel like we invited the right group of folks. It's really impressive and exciting and humbling, I suppose, a little bit to sort of see all these different efforts moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Samantha, Jim, Duncan, William, Kalina, Queen Quet, and Sam. Go ahead and turn on your cameras and we'll see how many little squares we get here. And and we'll go through a panel discussion. I've queued up a couple questions. Let me make sure I remove spotlights. Okay. I've queued up a couple questions for each of you. And my hope is that you can limit your responses, reactions to 2 minutes or so. So it'll be kind of quick, but hopefully we got the landscape about your projects in that first round of introductions. And then as we go through our questions, it'll be I'll be able to turn it over to Emily McGlone with Peace Boat US, who's been helping organize UN World Oceans Day, to give her thoughts on our projects and all of the work to pull so much of the activity across this week into the rest of this year and beyond. So let's go ahead and begin with Samantha. I'm so happy to be your friend and colleague. And Samantha, of course, is the author of the poem Ocean Acidification, which through collaboration with OA Alliance, Ocean Foundation, and the Canadian Community of Practice on Ocean Acidification turned into the video production that you got to experience at the top of the event. So Sam, I think in short, I can say people really love your poem and have been responding to it quite a bit. So generally, I want to ask, why were you inspired to write this poem? Did you have an audience in mind when writing? And in your experience as both a researcher and a poet, what can art, and in this very specific case, poetry, help explain or provide for individuals that a manuscript cannot?
Yes, I think I'll start with the audience part. And I'll say that, usually I'm writing something for either a science audience, if it's related to my research, or maybe for a public audience or an outreach product, or I'm writing for a literary audience if I'm working on poetry. So in this specific situation, I wanted to create a product that would bring those different communities together and hopefully generate a discussion that was bringing in different folks from different communities and different interests to talk about the issue together. And I think, writing poetry is unique in the way that it allows you to talk about the emotional self, to be emotional about the issues, to talk about what it means to you and put that on the page, which is different than, your typical scientific or academic journal article. And I think there's a lot of potential there to build connection, to develop empathy that's been mentioned in some of the other presentations here, and to tell a story. And that's really what grabs folks' attention and hopefully inspires people to learn more. And then as the writer, I also find when I'm writing poetry about science, I think about the science and the data in a different way. And so in this case, I'm also an ocean researcher and also an aquatic systems researcher. And when I'm thinking about this specific process, I had to think about how can I perform that on the page using poetry? And so I really start to think about word choices and visuals that are true to the science. And so that's a different thought process for me. And I think that also improves my research as I try to approach the information in different ways.
Thanks, Sam. And I'm just going to take liberties and do a quick follow-up question that's unscripted, but
absolutely
curious if you can share with folks. So what is today? 2 days ago on June 8th, when we first debuted the poem and the video together, we had a lot of interest, and Sam was reached out to by a news agency in Calgary, Canada, where she lives, and just recently did an interview that was played on the station. And I was sort of laughing because I thought, man, we've been working for years to get news outlets to pick up ocean acidification, and it just took this one poem, and we've got an 8-minute interview about ocean acidification. So Sam, can you just describe for us for fun, how surprised were you to get that call, and what did it feel like to be speaking to the news outlet about the issue and about the poem?
Yeah, it was really fun. I was nervous. That was my first sort of mainstream media interview. But I was really excited because they wanted to hear an excerpt of the poem. And I knew they also wanted to ask me about the event and then some of my PhD research. So I had my elevator pitch ready. And it was really nice because I think the questions they're asking are the same types of questions that I've been getting from all different types of people who are saying things like, they're interested, they didn't really know a lot about the issue, they feel moved, where can they find more? And so that was really exciting. And I'm just thrilled that it's getting the word out there, and hopefully people can follow up with some of the links and materials and continue to learn, and also for the science community, so people feel inspired that, you know, if they have creative ideas, if they do art, if they do music, if they're involved in other things, like, it's important, it has a lot of value, and you should keep doing it, and try to get it out there because people really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, moving over now to the Seattle Aquarium, and Aquaria have been mentioned a couple times as really critical partners in this outreach education effort related to your platform. So Jim, you talked a little bit about the Aquaria's mission to inspire conservation of our marine environment, and includes research that includes partners domestically and internationally that you're working to both inspire conservation, but also highlight threats to ocean and coastal resources. So it's a big old portfolio, basically. And I want to hear a little bit your thoughts on why Aquaria are in a unique position to inspire public discourse around action and climate ocean change specifically, in ways that are distinct from other ocean-focused NGOs. You know, what's the distinction that Aquaria uniquely can play in this discussion?
Yeah, thank you. I think that we've got two tremendous assets that I think that we can take advantage of, need to take advantage of. And that's the animals and our audience. We have 850,000 friends that come to see us every year, and they're motivated. They're interested in the animals. They're interested in the ocean. They become inspired by those animals and habitats, and so they're sort of standing on the ready to do something about it. And when you consider it, Seattle Aquarium is a sort of a medium-sized aquarium, so 850,000. When you lump all the zoos and aquariums, the accredited zoos and aquariums together, you're talking more like 200 million people. So 200 million people is quite a constituency. Mm-hmm. And you know, the reason that they come to us is because of the animals. And despite what we might hope, that the ocean, it does not feel as accessible for many people as taking a walk in a park or in a forest. And so, you know, the fact that we have this ability to create these connections, and as we become more urbanized, become more digital, that disconnect becomes more intense. We feel it more intense. We talk about things like nature deficit disorder and that sort of thing. And yes, digital media can be incredibly compelling. Documentaries the 4 and 8K documentaries are incredible, but there's just something about having a living animal in front of you. And there's nothing more powerful to create that kind of empathetic connection. So you've got these 200 million people, they've been inspired by animals and they're ready to take action. And so that's something that I think that has a lot of potential. We can also be an incredible platform for the work that our partners are doing, that we're doing with our partners together. So lots of great opportunities. And I think ultimately, it would be amazing if all 200 million people went home and did something to help the ocean. That would be fantastic. And we know that individual actions only get us so far. We want this sort of big systemic change, but you can't create systemic change in an ignorant or apathetic system. And so aquariums are this place where animals and people come together, and you create that groundswell. You win those hearts and minds so that this policy work, the research work, these large-scale conservation projects can have the traction that they need to be successful. So I think that's where our leverage and our power lies.
Well, that's great. And I think I once heard either your director or possibly Julie Packard say, Aquaria are so powerful because we can just pull out those pictures of baby otters, and you'll never see more likes on our Twitter than using the baby otter leverage. So so I'm hearing that reiterated.
That's no question, but we are working to make baby barnacles just as popular.
I think your Aaron Meyer at your aquarium also said something about charismatic abalone, which I was excited about.
That's right.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. So going across the Pacific, over where Duncan is in Samoa, we heard a little bit, Duncan, about the New Zealand Pacific Partnership on OA, which really was created as a monitoring project that includes pilot sites for monitoring OA in Fiji, in Kiribati, and Tokelau, in addition to activities that build resilience. And as you mentioned, the need for adaptation strategies now was a critical piece of that work. And I'm just curious why community and outreach and awareness was such an important part of the project from the onset. It seems like something that's usually missing from scientific monitoring endeavors. You don't usually see an equally strong pillar around education and outreach. So can you describe a little bit about why that was such an important piece to bake in from the beginning when you were starting the monitoring work?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, it was one of the 4 focal areas as the project was designed, but it's a necessary component to work in the Pacific Islands. And the Pacific Islands has a different ownership mechanism when it comes to coastal areas than maybe we're used to, let's say in the US, for example. We have communal ownership of the coast, and that includes out to the reef and beyond in some island nations. So an entire community, they do have the rights to the lagoon, to the reef, to the fishing rights. And so you can't do any work in a village or in a district without absolute buy-in from the local authorities. And many Pacific Islands, that includes a system of Matai or chief that have a council of chiefs that represent each family in the village. So if we're going in to design adaptation actions from the bottom up, in other words, they are priorities that the community is telling us as the project managers and implementers, this is what the community wants to happen. Now, we may present a range of adaptation options, for example, but the choice is coming from the community. So if that's going to happen, the community needs to understand what they're adapting to. And as we've said a few times here, ocean acidification is one of the more challenging climate change impacts to communicate. So like I described when it came to the posters and some of our other outreach actions, we had to, and Queen Quet mentioned this as well, come up with a new language in some instances and new vocabulary to describe this. And, you know, there's technicalities of doing that where you want to make sure the language stays consistent. You don't want one group to be making up, this is what we're going to call ocean acidification. And then next year, another group comes in and calls it something different. The community is going to get confused. So we made sure we used authoritative experts. Oftentimes we went to national universities and government level ministries to say, is this what we want to call it? And we're going to stick with it. And so this is, I think, what helped us get community buy-in to increase the resilience, lead to those actions that then become sustainable because the community understands. And they're very, very active when it comes to protecting their marine environment here in the Pacific. It's not a new concept. The issue of the concept of community ownership and stewardship of the coast and the ocean goes back millennia in these islands. So it's not a new concept, but this issue of ocean acidification is new. So once it's understood, it fits into the mechanisms that we already have here in the Pacific that use traditional authoritative structures to enforce regulations and make sure that they're adhered to when it comes to, let's say, setting up a locally managed marine area, for example.
It's a great overview of the context for all of the work that you've been leading. That's excellent. And I think what I'll do with that context is shift it over to you, Queen Quet. That's the great segue to some of the themes that you were talking about, and specifically, you know, as your role through the Alliance and through UN Sustainable Development Goal 14.3, you know, the Gullah Geechee Nation has also started creating OA-specific infographics, videos, and curriculum communicating about this topic to the Gullah Geechee community. And so just similar questions really to Duncan, but curious from your perspective, what process did you undertake to put these materials together, and how have they been used so far? Oh, let's go ahead and take yourself off mute.
I had already taken myself off. I guess somebody else did the behind the scenes, clicked it after I clicked it. So here we go. It's kind of symptomatic of what Duncan and I are both talking about, right? Where in the scientific world, you want to come in and you want to present something one way, but the community has something else they're already doing. So it's like you're both hitting that button at the same time, and you want to be able to hear from that community instead of muting it. You want to hear from that community, and that's usually the opposite of what happens in science. So one of the things that was very powerful was after coming back from Korea before the pandemic, and really having a lot of inspiration from other passionate people from around the world talking about this topic, I realized very quickly, yes, in that room, all of us had found a common language and we could talk about this. But when I get home, this is a very uncommon thing. The word acidification doesn't exist in Gullah. Okay, the ocean is here, but what do you mean by turning into acid? That's what it sounds like to people. So now it's like, how do I take this concept from this scientific arena, this political arena, and bring it home? And so when I saw what Duncan presented, I was like, hey, somebody else is doing it on the other side of this. And so this is great because I know that then the inspiration has spread. And so what I did was I knew that as long as I spoke through the narrative of what it was and Chomdang and we language and things like that, the people would immediately listen, because it's so few times that they hear things spoken completely in our native tongue. It's usually switched back and forth or spoken in English, shown in English. So I said, well, I know infographics are a big thing nowadays. Let me get some artists together that can create the infographic if I give them the concept of what causes oceans to acidify. And how does that impact us specifically on the Sea Islands? So that this way, people coming in could recognize it because we'll have the English part. But my people here, I'm going to do a video with those same infographic materials added with our language, and they will grasp it that much faster. A very complex scientific issue brought down to a cultural language so that it's something that's part of our lives. Because as soon as it's part of our lives, then we're interested, we're concerned. And so when I launched the video and made it so that it's for this generation, right? That 1 to 3 minute window, 1 to 3 minute long video about ocean acidification with these graphics. And I put it out there along with an attachment called a lesson on ocean acidification that actually has details in it about what tools you want to take when you go out to the beach, go out to the ocean, what could you take with you, and then make it just an exploration. While you're there, what are you witnessing? What do you see? If you're an artist, draw it. If you're a science person or a language person, write it. Maybe you will write a poem. Maybe you'll write a song. But then at the end of the day, if you have your camera with you, which most people do nowadays, right? Take pictures. What is it that you see differently? And then we also had little tools that people could take out. And I can't wait to get me a fighter now that were other little cups to go out with and collect ocean water, and then figure out what the pH is and the other things. So you can make it an intergenerational learning opportunity, going to a place that's beautiful on surface, but is it healthy when we go into it? And so that started to engage people, but then because people had to stay at home because of the virus, we didn't get the community capacity building yet pushed the way we want. But now we're starting to get out here again and get people engaged and get involved. But it's so funny to me because more non-Gullah Geechees found the video first than Gullah Geechees and started sharing it and tweeting it and got really excited. So I was like, well, wonderful. That means the cross-cultural component is working. So that's the beauty of translating it into languages that we can more understand, those that flow and have harmony.
That's so great. And I, as project manager of the OA Alliance, which is designed to bring, to information share around OA materials and knowledge. I mean, it's just such a gift to the broader international community, to your point, as well as to the local community. And I just, it's amazing because a topic like ocean acidification, both you and Duncan have talked about, and other members of our Alliance have talked about in different languages. Again, there's no term for ocean acidification. So how do you start to describe that? But it does sort of, even in, English, if you will, when we have a lot of vocabulary around the science of ocean acidification to describe it, still the translation to policymakers often is sort of like, are you telling me the ocean is boiling with acid?
Right. Right.
There's all these ways that communicating about ocean acidification is so difficult on its face, and so it's honestly an honor to be in league with everybody here, trying to work out these really complicated ways to talk about a really complicated but really important phenomena.
Absolutely.
So with that, I know we're running low-ish on time, so I'll beg a couple folks forgiveness, and I'll turn it over to, I think it's a really good segue then to talk about the fighters. To your point, Queen Quet, where we want folks to take things to the ocean with them and want to engage and witness and be part of that experience. And so, William, maybe I want to give you a minute or so, if that's all right with you, just to talk a little bit, about this fighter, which is a handheld instrument that's going to help measure pH, which is an indicator of ocean acidification. And you wanted it to be a really easy to use device. We saw it right when you were giving your introduction. And so from the beginning, why was it so important to you that the fighter sensor was handheld? Like, why is it so important that it's a hands-on accessibility of the instrument from the design level?
Yeah, so it ties into your second question. Can you ask the second question too? Is that fair for me?
We can ask the second question. We're not so scripted that we have questions like this. These are just off the cuff, of course.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding. So the second question for you and Kalina is, and you guys can tag team the answer, how's that, is, you're also working on curriculum for the fighter that's going to accompany the instrument. So what kinds of information are going into the curriculum is my second question. And what is the desired outcome?
I was thinking of something different, but anyways, I guess I almost want to say it was more by circumstance than anything else. It wasn't necessarily, as much as I'd want to tell you that, it wasn't necessarily like this intuitive design brilliance. It was because, we found ourselves, I'm from, and this instrument actually developed in northwestern Montana. So this is in the Northwest United States, no ocean, in the middle of nowhere, kind of not a lot of oceanographic technology or research. And we didn't have resources. And so like that's kind of the historical sense. In the sense we've done some work, I guess it's like astonishing, or I don't know, it's almost tragic to me, like the amount of people that inquire to me that absolutely are like in the same position we were, that want to do something but just aren't equipped or don't have the resources to get involved. So it's one thing, someone mentioned apathy, which is a problem in itself, but the fact that even people who do want to do something don't have, like, can't even afford to, is a large part of what makes the fighter what it is, and that is a simple handheld instrument. And I guess I've overlooked the whole, like, it gives a user an experience with the ocean, which is huge as well, and that has been continually surprising as well. I can't write that off as like that was my intention. So I'll give some Kalina time to answer the other question. But
that's great, William. Over to you, Kalina, and then we'll go to Sam and Emily for closing remarks. Go ahead, Kalina.
Yeah, so I've been working a lot on figuring out what curriculum needs to support the fighter. And the idea, it comes back to, I guess, communication in a way, is, this fighter, we see it as an incredible device, but it alone is not enough to teach someone what ocean acidification is. And so we want to support the fighter with these curriculums that can focus on, what is pH? Why do you want to measure pH? How do you measure pH? And to really inspire people to be able to design their own monitoring systems in their communities, or to ask their own research questions and to just get out there in the field and investigate. And so it brings up as well, you know, thinking about what everyone else is saying here is like how important it will be down the line to make sure that these curriculum are also translated into local languages. And we hope to have, you know, in the future, representatives around the world that can take the fighters, that can take these curriculums and train others that are around them as well. So I guess that's the long-term vision. And so hopefully soon we can get some of these rolling to different communities around the world.
That's great. Well, thank you, Kalina and William. And you know, you've got a interested audience here in our partnerships across the board. So last question to panelists, and then I'll turn it over to Emily to give us some closing remarks. So Sam, speaking a little bit, you know, you touched on some of these themes early about the Foundation's core work, including ocean literacy, particularly around curricula for school children between the ages of 5 and 9. And obviously you guys are based in Portugal. And so I'm really curious, and it sort of helps tie in some of these themes about relationship to ocean at the earliest ages. And so I'm really curious, in your perspective of the Foundation, what was the most important and fundamental things that every child in Portugal should know about the country's relationship to the sea?
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. And I think this is, like I said, it's a perfect segue because from various different ways, we've all talked that communicating is the most important thing. We all know our stuff, but we need to communicate it to people who don't know or need to know. And so, yeah, like you said, we have the Blue Education program here in Portugal. To kind of quickly cover that, I would say Portugal has a very tight link with the ocean. We're a coastal country. You see it in the street names, in the food, in the family names. You know, it's part of the present day economy, the recreational activities. And I think the important thing for the children is it will be part of the future of Portugal in some form, and what form that takes will be influenced by how we educate the next generations. And so I think that's a really important part. So to your question of what the kids need to know, I think the biggest thing for me is that the ocean, they need to know the ocean is a single system. You know, that the Sea of Portugal is not separate to the high seas. It's not separate to the Atlantic or something. It's all one system. There's no S, there's one ocean. That's the kind of the first fundamental. But also that, you know, the ocean plays an important role in their lives. And similarly, they play an important role in the ocean's life and the health of the ocean. So understanding that there is a direct connection through everyday lives is an important thing to do, because it reinforces that, you know, a healthy ocean for the next generation and a healthy climate, because these, again, there's a fundamental link between healthy oceans and healthy climate. And this conversation needs to be brought together, because I guess I'm an optimist. And I would say that I hope, and I'm an optimist to say that I think that we're leaving the Industrial Revolution era in this decade. I would like to say that we're leaving the Industrial Revolution era and we're moving into the Environmental Revolution era. And the youth of today will be the pioneers of this new era. And so if we can correctly equip them with knowledge about ocean literacy now, then I think we'll be in safe hands. I hope we'll be in safe hands. And so I guess a last note here is just that we've known about climate crisis, environmental crisis, ocean crisis for decades now, but it still hasn't made it into the mainstream curriculum internationally when it is an international issue. So at the Foundation, we feel we kind of owe it to the next generations to empower them with the knowledge that will help them save the planet, which is, it's no longer an overstatement. I think maybe that was a bit hysterical. Some people might say a few years ago. It's not hysterical. It is fact now. So we've all seen the kids. They're marching, they're school striking, they're engaging with planetary issues. And so I think we ought them to engage back and include it in the national curriculum and make sure that we give them the tools they need.
Well, thanks so much, Sam, and for all the panelists. That was such an enjoyable round of discussions, and apologies for questions that we didn't get to, but really appreciate your time and partnership. It matters a lot. And I really look forward to sharing this discussion with others. And in full Alliance fashion, sometimes I overpack an agenda because I'm just too excited, and I might do some follow-up Q&A that is written, because I actually think that's a really digestible form for folks that even couldn't attend the event, and just to get your thoughts down in more of a, in perpetuity, if you will. So I might be bothering you all after this for that reason. So with that, it is my honor to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Emily McGlone, with Peace Boat US to talk a little bit, as much as you would like, Emily. I'm always fine with begging people's forgiveness, but turning it over to you to give concluding remarks and to share your screen if you would like to around some of the work that Peace Boat is helping promote the Sustainable Development Goal agenda.
Thank you so much, Jesse. And what a great panel, everyone. I was so inspired by all of your work and comments, and this workshop in general, just talking about, creativity and how we can use art and education for oceans and climate action is just so important. And thank you also, Sam, for making a very nice segue into exactly what I want to talk about today, which is empowering young people to take action for the ocean. And Peace Boat, just to give a brief introduction, is an international NGO that works to promote peace and sustainability and sails as a flagship for the UN SDGs. So we have a cruise ship that goes around the world and visits around 20 countries every 3 months. And I currently work as the director of the United Nations based office in New York City, where I am right now. And as we all know, we're celebrating the United Nations World Oceans Day week and month of June. And so this year I had the honor of being the coordinator for the working group of the Friends of World Oceans Day group. And it's been such a pleasure to see so many NGOs coming together, especially this year as we launched the Decade of Action and also the Decade of Sustainability, working on the oceans. It's so important that we come together around these issues. So I wanted to share a little bit about some of the creative ways that we've been able to work on these issues together. If you can all see my screen here, this is the Action for the Oceans program that we launched this year together with our partners at Pendulum in celebration of World Oceans Day. And we have brought together actually 13 youth who are part of Peace Boat's youth programs. As our organization travels the world, we visit so many island nations and coastal areas. And what we really find is important is connecting these youth and helping them also find common challenges and solutions for climate change, issues related to ocean degradation and their coastal areas. So we have young people here you'll see from Trinidad and Tobago, Montserrat, youth from Belize, some youth from Israel as well, Fiji, Colombia, and other areas of the world, including Seychelles, Timor-Leste. And all of these youth have traveled on the Peace Boat and are working with us towards achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And this year we thought, since we're not traveling because of the pandemic this year, how can we bring these youth together online in a creative way? So that's why we launched this Action for the Oceans program. This is actually a program that helps us learn about ocean acidification, about conservation of the oceans and different practices that they can take up in their different home communities, but also for the young people who are not living in coastal areas, what are the actions that they can take? So each of our youth has created an action. So when you visit the website, which we can share with you after in the notes, you can click on each of their actions and it brings up their own pages with different quotes and facts about the oceans, and then actions you can actually take right now from home. So we're really excited to launch this campaign. This is the end of the first week of World Oceans Week, and we have created an event that will be taking place actually tomorrow. It's a hybrid exhibition using art and creativity to raise awareness about these issues. And one part of this exhibition is also an ocean film festival, where the Friends of UN World Oceans Day, and for those of you who haven't joined the working group or the members of Friends of World Oceans Day, I would like to invite you all to join. It is open to all NGOs and partners with the United Nations to be part of this Friends of group. And we've asked many of our partners to submit films that will be shown online in a virtual film screening. So we'll also share this with you all. It's free and open to the public, and it will be highlighting so many amazing films that are about the oceans and that can really shed light onto some of these important topics in a creative way. I know that a lot of us have been using Zoom and all these webinar platforms to be online, but I feel like film has a really strong power to use creativity, including some behind the scenes interviews with the directors on how you can participate. And one of our biggest challenges and solutions for the oceans this year is to continue working towards Peace Boat's eco-ship. So I also wanted to share just a little bit on this website. Our Peace Boat eco-ship project is built around supporting conservation for the oceans and sailing as a flagship for climate action. We are building the world's first sustainable cruise ship, which will be a passenger ship that will be used for marine research and education. This is a place for people to come together and work on these very important issues as we're traveling the high seas and also visiting so many local coastal communities. So I would love to invite all of you also to join us on board in the future. We have a lot of partners, including Fabien Cousteau, who's featured here, who has decided to build with us part of this EcoShip project to have a marine research library on board, a center where we can have a wet lab and a dry lab, and using all of the techniques that we've learned over these years to really put on the forefront of education the importance of ocean and climate action. So I'm excited to share all of this with you and to have you all be a part of it, because I know that just like the Ocean Acidification Alliance does, Peaceboat is very focused on bringing together partnerships for the oceans and really providing a platform where we can all build off of each other's strengths. And I think that this panel today has really done that. It's shown the diversity of creative solutions for the oceans. And just thank you so much, Jesse, for organizing, and to all the partners for your inspiring presentations.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Emily, for that. And I think I'm comfortable to say that we can get you some ocean acidification poetry videos your way at some point in the future here, along with OA infographics and posters, and looking forward to more of that exchange. So all to say, thank you guys so much. It's a pleasure to be part of this community, truly. And I hope that we all go forward into UN World Ocean Week. Emily, you're telling me that there's weeks, so I'm wishing you stamina as you continue on with UN World Oceans Weeks, plural, and sending everybody really good vibes. This is an important year as we move towards COP26, as we move towards the next ocean conference around SDG 14 specifically. And then of course, with the UN decade in front of us, as many partners mentioned here. So onward together. Thank you so much for your time. It's really a pleasure. None of this works unless you guys answer the phone and return emails. And so I know it's always a choice. It's never mandated. So it really means a lot and is a testament to the community. So thank you, and sending good vibes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Happy World Oceans Week.
That's what I was gonna say. Enjoy World Oceans Week and the World Oceans Month, everyone. Peace and blessings to you. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.